Welcome back to the Silverstone National Circuit, where a very exciting and competitive qualifying session for the fourth week of racing in the Civic Cup has just been completed. And for the first time all season, it is not Max Edmondson on pole position. Far from it, actually. The championship contender having a bit of a rough qualifying session. He'll be deep in the order. And instead, it's Andy Dorman who gets his first pole position of the season. Andy joins us in the commentary box now. That was quite some effort, and you did it really early in the session. Are you surprised how quickly you were able to string that lap together?
Yeah, it was. I couldn't believe how easy it was so early on. I was expecting to have to fight to get near the front.
Everyone else fighting to try and keep up with you, which they ultimately were not able to do. Pole position is nice to get, of course it is, but it's going to be almost impossible to break away around this circuit, I would imagine. So what's the game plan going into this first 20-minute race?
Just try and stay out of trouble for the first couple of laps and see where we end up.
Simple as that, hey? I'm not convinced it's going to be all that easy. I mean, that slipstream, how powerful is the slipstream around here? Because it is a circuit known for that sort of slipstreamy action, isn't it? Do you think that it's going to be possible to pull fully alongside people down that back straight, for example?
Yeah, I think the slipstream is going to work really well, but I've not tried it out yet, so I'm not sure.
Okay, fair enough. Well, okay, that's the slipstream then. We'll learn that as we go. What about the start of the race? Because, again, getting these things off the line isn't all that easy, is it?
No, we seem to be managed all right in the last few weeks, so we'll just see how we go.
All right, well, Andy, we'll let you go and continue with your preparations for the first race. But huge congratulations on breaking the Max Edmondson pole position streak, and best of luck for the first race.
Yep, thanks a lot.
Andy Dorman then on the pole position for our first race of the night here on the Silverstone National Circuit. He got it, Dave, by just under a tenth of a second. And yeah, I think he may be a little bit nervous about this now. The reality of what's about to happen perhaps dawning on him. It is going to be a real dogfight out there, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And you know what? It's a massive confidence boost for a driver to go out and put it on pole ahead of the other drivers. It's almost that bit of a statement going, you know what, boys, I've got a bit of pace on you, so I'm going to be, getting me head down and going. The only thing I would say, sometimes Andy's a bit of a reserved driver, struggles with that early aggression. So I really want to see Andy really dominate the start of this race, get nicely on his lines and make sure he tells the drivers that that's where he's going and help himself pull away. Josh Martin is a smart driver. I imagine he'll probably want to work with Andy as quick as he possibly can. And we've seen Scott, he's a super consistent finisher, and I imagine the likes of Scott won't be taking any excessive risk here, knowing how far Max is back down the grid.
It is an interesting one, isn't it, though, because with it being very slipstream heavy, this circuit, and we're expecting a lead pack of cars, basically, we're expecting overtaking to be not easy, certainly possible. Your racecraft will be put to the test here, and it's tempting with this kind of racing to say, oh, the more aggressive drivers are naturally going to find their way to the front and be able to stay there. But actually, in my experience, at least of one-make racing on the sim around this circuit, sometimes patience can actually serve you better. If you sit behind a group of battling cars, they'll likely come to blows at some point. At the very least, they'll hold each other up, and that might just give you the opportunity to get the run on them. We'll see which of the two mindsets it is that will come out on top. Will it be aggression, or will it be the canny drivers who are willing to let the race come to them, who end up at the front at the end of 20 minutes of racing then in round number 7 of the VRRC Civic Cup? Andy Dorman on pole position on the right of screen. Josh Martin on the left is second on the grid. The championship contender Max Edmondson down in 13th place, whilst the points leader Scott Bugner lines up on the outside of row number 2. Let's go racing then for the 7th time this season in the VRRC Civic Cup. The red lights go out. We're away and racing at Silverstone, and Josh Martin goes nowhere. A terrible start from second on the grid. That means Andy Dorman will be uncontested down to Copse Corner for the first time. Let's see who's going to be there in second place. Looks like that is Bugner and Lask, isn't it? Second and third. Max Bird up to fourth. And a disastrous start there for Josh Martin. Luckily, as we've said, we anticipate you'll be able to overtake pretty well here at Silverstone. But already, Dave, Josh has made his life that little bit harder.
Yeah, that's not the start you wanted. And look at this, Bugner already looking like he's showing his nose up the inside of Dorman, down that back straight, and there's a collision in the background. That looked like that was Brad Smith driving into the side of Boogie, but Boogie must have had a sideways moment on the way down it there. That's not what we'd like to see either. Andy Carroll with a spin-off onto the side as well. Whether that was a tap or just losing the back end, we're not too sure. But needless to say, Dorman has managed to keep his nose out in front, and I believe there's more collisions happening as well, but that looks like it's all side to side, all firm and fair racing. Edmondson has managed to get himself up into P10 as well, so brilliant effort by Edmondson, and I imagine he'll be focusing on really working with Nicky Taylor there in front. Scott Bugner, what a start that's been there. Josh Martin dropping back down the grid. Look at Bugner, how aggressive he is on the way towards the corners underneath Dorman, running slightly wide there. We said regarding track limits, it is definitely faster if you don't run out onto the green. The green slows the car down, so if drivers are seen doing it, it isn't classed as gaining an advantage, hence why they won't be penalised if they do it either.
Side by side here, Elliot Dalton-Ayres and Josh Martin. That's Dalton-Ayres at the inside of Martin for 6th position, so he's lost another place to Axelsen since halfway around the opening lap, and he'll just about keep Dalton-Ayres at bay as they head down into Brooklands corner. There is Max Edmondson again to the outside, this time of Nicky Taylor. He tried this a lap ago. There was a little bit of contact between the two of them at the apex. He's sideways on that cold right rear tyre, but this time manages to stand his ground, gets the inside line for Luffield, and Edmondson goes 9th. So this is, as you said, going really well for Edmondson. He's still well and truly in that lead pack, and well, he'll be trying to progress even further up it, especially given the fact that Scott Bugner currently runs in 2nd place. Lap number 2 in the books then. It's Dorman that leads the way. Bugner 2nd, Last 3rd, Bird 4th, Axelsen 5th. But the whole field, Dave, as we expected, pretty much in one long line.
Yeah, definitely. Look, this Nicky Taylor's going to have a run here up the inside of Max Edmondson. This is going to be a fantastic move. Nicky's going to hold it around the outside. This is where it's key for Edmondson to go, you know what, I've lost this position, tuck back in and try and not lose the momentum of that car. That 50 kilograms of weight can really hinder this car, especially if he's not managing to get the exits. Somehow he's actually managed to hold it round the outside, I believe, of Nicky Taylor though. But you can see them battling just for 2 corners has really sacrificed the run down the straight. This is Josh Martin going to try and set up an overtake. Oh, and I believe that was lag. So a massive lag spike there from Josh Martin, and unfortunately that's cost him his race, and luckily it hasn't cost Eric Axelsen. So Eric Axelsen now up into P5. Fantastic drive but so far by him.
That's a shame though, isn't it? Josh Martin, there was so much potential in this race, starting on the front row, but a bad start, and now, as you said, that lag down at Brooklands corner, taking him essentially out of contention. He's still going, but with a damaged car and down in 5th place. Dorman then still leading the way, on board with Eric Axelsen in 5th position, and they make their way down towards Mackett and Beckett's. Now, that fastest lap has been snatched by Scott Bugner in 2nd place. That is worth an extra championship point, and I think it's going to go to a few different drivers over the course of the race because of the way that slipstream works. If you happen to hook up a particularly good lap and get a particularly good tow, then you have every chance of setting the fastest lap of the race. So I would imagine we'll see that chop and change between a few drivers before the checkered flag. Elliot Dalton-Ayres, meanwhile, still working over Kyle Felvers here for 6th position, and would you believe it, Dave, right behind him is Max Edmondson, who just keeps on creeping up the order.
Yeah, he does indeed. He's just shown why he really does deserve to be at the front end of this championship battle. A fantastic driver, but I tell you what, this is not doing him any favours battling with Nicky Taylor. Nicky Taylor has got every right to battle as hard as he can, but that is seeming to slow them down off the back of P7. Look at this, Nicky Taylor gets up the inside line of Max Edmondson here, so he's going to have a good drive. Will he be brave enough to put his nose down the inside here? He is indeed. Edmondson's going to come across the nose a little bit, but you can see both drivers very, very skilled indeed, managing not to have a collision here. And this is fantastic racing to see. Nicky Taylor there with a little bump, just saying, Max, come on, we need to work together, let's go. So let's see if they can really do the damage here and close back in on that P7 of Elliot Dalton-Ayres.
I take your point there. Yes, they should be working together, but I would argue that that's more on Nicky than Max. There's not much Max can do here, really, is there? He's just sort of going about his business, and Nicky's the one that keeps on sending it up the inside into every braking zone. It looks like now maybe he's got the memo and was giving Max a little bit of a shove down the Wellington straight there, but you could see the way that they had now sort of been disengaged from this group of cars ahead. Over a second now between Elliot Dalton Ayres in 7th and Max Edmondson in 8th position. Mark Hughes, meanwhile, dicing away with George Out Williams. Has he gone through? I think he has. Well, sort of. George is lingering on the outside line and will try and stand his ground all the way around the outside at Woodcote and down towards Copse Corner. But the outside at Copse is not usually the place that you want to be. Bit of shuffling going on towards the front as well there as Buckner was out wide, but great racing all the way through the order here. We might actually have our first lead change because Scott Buckner is up the inside of Andy Dorman at Beckett, and he will go through. So Dorman for the first time loses the lead, but immediately Dave tries to fight back down the Wellington straight.
Yeah, and that's a brilliant move up the inside by Andy. Just slowed the car down a little bit and got that steering super straight on the exit, and that's going to give him a great run down the straight here. We're just trying to look through from Max Bird's car, and Dorman looks like he's gone a little bit wide. That's going to leave the door open for Joe Last. Joe Last doesn't need a second invitation there, putting up the inside, but Max Bird's looking at this going, you know what, I'm going to try and follow Andy through here and possibly might get Joe Lask on the exit. So these cars really providing some fantastic racing here. And I tell you what, this is exactly what Scott Buckner will want to see in his mirror there, nearly pulling away over half a second already in one lap.
Yeah, this is the only way you're going to break the toe at the front of the field here, if they start squabbling over second. And you're right, he was 8/10 faster than Andy Dorman on that lap, and he's going to keep on extending that margin because still these three drivers are practically on top of each other as they head down to Maggots Beckett. That was a bit of a bump from Max Bird onto the tail of Andy Dorman's car, which almost sent Dorman sideways into Joel Lask. In the end, Dorman settles in second, Lask third, and Bird fourth, with Eric Axelson, you can just see in the mirror, looming large in 5th position as well. Now, will they choose to work together down the back straight? Of course they won't. Here comes Lask up the inside line. He wants that second place, whilst George Out Williams is in strife up at Beckett's, dropping down to 16th.
Yeah, I could be wrong as well. Just looking on the server details we've got, I believe it was a collision with Josh Martin and another very good friend. So that I imagine will be quite a friendly battle there going on. But meanwhile, we'll jump back on board with Max Bird, and it's almost a mirror image of exactly the lap that was happening on the previous lap. So Max Bird couldn't get anything done on that previous lap, but we did see him get a very good run indeed through turn 1. But is he going to try and make this 3 wide going down towards turn 1? This is very brave indeed. Andy Dorman is trying to leave the door as open as possible, and Joe Lask had absolutely nowhere to go. And look who is about to absolutely capitalise on this. Eric Axelson from P5 all the way up into P3 straight away. What a fantastic lap that's been.
It could even be P2 because he's on the outside here into Beckett's corner of Max Bird, but he can't do it, gets elbowed out wide a bit, and actually will lose a place now, I think, to Joel Lask as they head down the Wellington straight. But that was a great example there of what I was sort of saying before the race. There are 2 ways of doing this. You can be aggressive and get stuck in like Max Bird did, taking it 3 wide into Copse Corner, or you can sit back, let them all trip over each other and pick up the pieces, as Eric Axelson did when they came out of Copse Corner. Okay, it didn't quite get him second, but he still gained a place into 4th position and is well and truly in this fight for 2nd place. But look, the leader, Scott Buckner, 2.1, nearly 2.2 seconds now up the road from this lot. And I don't think over the next 11 minutes they're going to be able to catch him. So that could have been a defining moment in this race for Scott Buckner, and maybe for the championship, because a race win here with Edmondson down in 8th position could be really helpful for the current points leader. Remember, he's 1 point ahead of Edmondson coming into this second half of the season. And at the moment, Edmondson, look, is still battling away with Nicky Taylor. They're side by side again at Copse.
Yeah, fantastic racing. This is exactly what we want to see. Door handle to door handle. I tell you what, this group, what's that? P2 all the way down to P7. What was I saying about half a second can take the victory? We're on here at the moment. Scott Bugney, right, what you said, 2 seconds up the road, looking like he's really starting to pull away now. But this, from P2 to P7, this is anyone's game at the moment. Kyle Felthers can quite easily see himself, 10 minutes left of this race, find himself in P2.
Yes, definitely, or indeed find himself pointing the wrong way when it all goes wrong, because this is getting very touchy-feely now. There's some contact, that's Bird into Axelsen, and Axelsen will save it. Bird then gets a bit of a shove from Elliot Daltonez as well. This can't last, surely. We're only halfway through the race, and they're starting now to get a little bit rough with each other. Let's play nice here, kids. Down towards Copse Corner they go. Which way are they all going to go? Daltonez looking to the inside line. There is Bugner. He's loving this. He's escaping by a huge chunk of time each lap. And in fact, his teammate Joel Laskin second place also now starting to make a bit of a break. It's Bird and Axelsen side by side for third. Daltonez and Felvers side by side for fifth place. And Andy Dorman, who's been sort of shuffled to the back of that group, now starting to get involved again as well.
Yeah, and actually, I tell you a driver who I'm trying to keep an eye on. That driver there in the leopard print car, Reese Bell, really starting to take some chunk of time out of both Edmondson and Taylor. So Reese Bell looking like, if Nicky Taylor and Edmondson are not careful here, might actually start to have the speed over them and get involved as well, which will be a three-way battle. And the last thing Edmondson will want is to then have another car to contend with, as well as Nicky Taylor, who is already making his job hard enough to try and rescue this championship.
Yeah, most definitely. Out of Luffield we go, on board with Elliot Daltonez then. We are, as I said, into the second half of this race. Max Edmondson and Nicky Taylor. Every time I look at their names on the timing tower, they're swapping positions for 8th place. But again, they're not gaining on this group. They should be taking a second a lap out of this group whilst they all fight. They're not, because they're too busy fighting over 8th position. As entertaining as I'm sure that battle is, it's perhaps not the best thing here for Edmondson's championship hopes. Oh, Axelsen most up the inside of Max Bird there, but Max is able to close the door as they head towards Maggins and Beckett. The race leader, Scott Bugner, nearly, well, he is now 3 seconds clear of Joel Laskin. I reckon Joel has probably broken the toe as well here. He's 1.5 seconds now ahead of Max Bird, Eric Axelsen, Carl Felvis, Elliot Daltonez, etc. I'm not convinced they're going to be able to get back at last here either, so this could now, realistically, Dave, become a fight for the bottom step of the podium only.
Yeah, could indeed. You're right about Joel. I did say before this coming, Reese Bell, very, very late on the brakes there. I thought that was an imminent collision there. Just managed to take the back, and I tell you what, Nicky Taylor will have probably been looking in his mirror there thinking, oh heck, brace for impact here. That was a definite collision course, but luckily no collision involved, and Nicky Taylor still absolutely glued to the back of Edmondson's car. But you're right in what you said before, Andy. Every lap, Edmondson Taylor's name seems to be the opposite way around, so what a fantastic battle this has proven to be. And for all its 9th and 8th place, it's still fantastic racing all the way down the grid.
Axelsen up alongside Max Bird now for 3rd position, and tries to get to the outside line into Beckett's corner. Now, you can make this work sometimes, either by carrying the momentum around the outside or doing exactly what Eric Axelsen did there and turning into the late apex, getting the switchback and carrying the momentum down the Wellington straight. There you can see Carl Felvis with the grandstand view. He's going to get a shove here from his HFT Racing teammate Elliot Daltonez, and they're both going to try and capitalise on this side-by-side battle ahead. Axelsen late on the brakes, but he's on the outside line. Oh, there's inevitable contact. Again, Axelsen does well to save it. And now Felvers trying to hunt around on the outside. Max Bird runs out wide. There's a gap on the inside for Felvers, and he gives him a bit of a hip and shoulder at the apex as well. So Axelsen goes 3rd, and actually Felvers is up into 4th place. Dave, what is Kyle Felvers doing inside the top 5 in a Civic Cup race? This is not what we've become used to seeing. He's clearly getting to grips with that car. He sort of thought he would.
Yeah, I mean, there's clearly pace in the driver, and this is just his racecraft, his raw racecraft feeling. We've seen how good he is before. There's no room there on the inside, but that's also sacrificed his exit. So Elliot Dalton is actually going to have a look now up the inside of his teammate. 1 lap, and there's 4 position changes already. He's going to try and do it around the outside. And Andy Dorman, look at this. Super wide run into this last corner onto the back straight. This is going to be a great run, but I could be wrong. I don't think he's going to have anywhere to go here, Andy.
Well, there is an inviting gap up the inside of these 2 HFT Racing drivers, but Dorman, interestingly, not going for it. Now, you did say that he's not known for being the most aggressive driver. He, at the moment, seems happy to just sit, bide his time, wait and see how this all plays out, because, I mean, this has got accident written all over it, hasn't it? It's very entertaining to watch, but you just, it's one tiny false move away from sending all 4 of those cars spinning off the road, at which point Dorman would be there to pick up the pieces. So right now, I think maybe he's got the right idea. Just sit back, wait, see how this plays out. We've still got just over a quarter of the race to go. 5.25 minutes left on the clock, 13 laps in the book, and it is Scott Bugner who leads by 3.5 seconds over Joel Laskin second, who is 2.5 now ahead of this almighty fight for third place.
Yeah, what a fantastic battle this is. And you said 4 cars, it's almost imminent to see all 4 cars go off the track, but isn't that exactly what we watch racing for? Realistically, it's as close battling as you can possibly have, on the verge of being absolutely a catastrophe. So at the moment, this is exactly what I wanted to see really from this. For me, Andy just sometimes setting a few of them corners up a little bit too wide, thinking he's going to get a better run, and if I'm honest, doesn't really seem to be gaining that much from it. But what a drive for me from Eric Axelsen. Some of their moves and putting the trust in Max Bird not to run him off wide. Absolutely fantastic racing and top drive so far today.
Yeah, I could not agree more. Eric Axelsen, who in the past has been a little bit like Andy Dorman, actually. He's been criticised, perhaps that's the wrong word, but it's been noted that he doesn't get too stuck into these side-by-side battles. He's not that aggressive, but actually has had some real good controlled aggression in this race. And indeed all season, actually, he's been notably more aggressive, and it's paying off for him into that third position at the moment. Josh Martin, I'm afraid, his race going from bad to worse here. He slips back behind George Alp Williams. Both of these drivers have had their issues in this race. 14th for Alp Williams and Josh Martin in 15th. Josh Martin, though, I would say here, Dave, is a good shout for a race 2 win, because remember, it's a full grid reverse, so the 20 at the moment then would be reversed. That would put Martin 6th on that race 2 grid. We know he's got good pace, just never really was able to show it in this one.
Yeah, definitely, and I could be wrong. I think a few of these incidents seem to be caused by his internet connection, so hopefully he can get that sorted out for race 2. But without doubt, my money is probably on Dave Bookie for race 2. We saw him up in that real top-end fight at the start of the race, and unfortunately, for whatever reason, saw him drop back really quickly. But we know he's got the pace in the car, and I reckon he's probably the one to watch come race 2. Going to be starting pole. Yeah, he's probably where my money is.
That's a good point, actually. Qualified well for this race as well, didn't he, Dave? But unfortunately was off before they were even halfway around the first lap. Right, Max Edmondson side by side with someone, but it's not Nicky Taylor. I don't know how I feel about this. Nicky Taylor's got ahead of him and has actually started to pull clear now from Edmondson, who instead has got his mirrors full of Reece Bell in that leopard print car. So Edmondson slipping down to 9th, not having the race that he needed here. Bugner on course for maximum points with the race win, and Max Edmondson down in 9th, although I noticed Nicky Taylor running wide there at Beckett, so that might just allow Edmondson to close back in again. Down into Brooklands we go, just ahead of this group then. Andy Dorman ahead now of Felvis as well, so Andy Dorman into that 6th position, whilst Elliot Dalton-Ayres tries to get after Max Bird. Is it me, Dave, or is Eric Axelsen now starting to drop this group as well? 7/10 is not a big cushion, but given how close this race has been, that's actually a relatively comfortable margin for third place. Yeah,
it just seems like there's a few drivers really starting to get into a bit of rhythm, as you said, just settling in, letting the race come to them a little bit more. The likes of even Elliot here behind Max Bird, it doesn't seem excessively aggressive. I feel like Elliot's quite happy just to be behind Max and push him on and really try and close back onto the back of Elliot. Andy Dorman last lap getting past Kyle Felvis, and if you look, Nicky Taylor, as soon as he stopped battling as much with the likes of Max Edmondson, is now actually really starting to progress onto the back of Felvis, and this could turn to Nicky Taylor battling for P10 to now battling even up to P6.
True, actually. They're all just starting to come together a bit, aren't they? And this will help that, because Elliot Dalton-Ayres is alongside Max Bird for 4th place now as they head down towards Brooklands. I think we're going to be starting the final lap this time. It's going to be touch and go as to whether they get one more in after this. Depends when the leader crosses the line. If it is 2 more laps, then I absolutely agree. This whole group is going to bunch back together again. Max Bird around the outside of Dalton-Ayres there to hang on to the position, and does indeed stay in that 4th position on board with Dalton-Ayres. Better traction off Luffield, tries to get to the inside. Max Bird knew that was coming though and pulled over to the inside to cover it. The leader goes through. There is less than a minute on the clock, so this will be the final lap of the race, and still anyone's 4th place here really. Top 3 seem fairly settled, but 4th place on back could all still change.
Oh, Elliot just slightly misjudged that there. He was trying to get the undercut, and it's actually cost him. Look at this, Andy Dorman now up the inside of Elliot Dalton. There's a bit of contact, so there's my motto for Andy Dorman out the window saying I don't think he's quite aggressive enough. Up the inside he goes of Elliott. Hands back the favour from Elliott, just trying to squeeze him down into there. And who's that? I believe that's Kyle Felvis now all over the back of Elliott as well, trying to get amongst that. And look at that, Nicky Taylor flashing his lights. He knows if this kicks off in front, he's got every chance to gain 2, possibly even 3 positions here. Here we go into the last corners.
Well, that was close. That looked like Felvis was going to send it up the inside of Dorman, but Dorman actually was really late on the brakes and held on to the position. The time ticks down to 0. All this going on, remember, for 4th place on back. Scott Bugner is going to win the race by nearly 4.5 seconds. Not necessarily what we expected, and it's his first victory of the season. What a time to do it. Joel Last comes home in 2nd place. Eric Axelson will be 3rd. 4th, Max Bird. 5th, Dorman, side by side between the teammates there for 6th. It is Felvis ahead of Dalton Ayres by 54 1/1000ths of a second, with Nicky Taylor 8th, actually. So the 3 HFT boys, 6th, 7th, and 8th, respectively. Max Edmondson only 9th, and Reese Bell in 10th position. Chris Shepherd comes home 11th. There's Josh Martin down in 15th position. Andy Carroll 16th after their early issues. What race that was. What a drive from Scott Bugner. Finally gets that monkey off his back. He gets that first victory of the season. And yeah, Dave, what a time to do it. Max Edmondson all the way down in 9th position, and even Max Bird off the podium as well. That could be a really important race, that for Scott Bugner as far as his championship is concerned. We'll have all of the reaction to what was a hugely exciting first race of the night on the other side of this break. Well, the Silverstone National Circuit has absolutely delivered everything that it promised to. Some really great racing in the first race of the night here in the VRRC Civic Cup, and we're already looking forward to the reversed grid antics of race number 2 coming up in a few minutes' time. Before that, though, let's have a chat with our 3 podium finishes from race number 1, and we'll start, appropriately enough, with Scott Bugner. And Scott, finally, you get that first victory of the season. You've been Mr. Consistency up to this point, never finishing worse than 5th place in any race, but you finally got the race win, and what a time to do it, with Max Edmondson so far not having the best of nights.
Yeah, it's about time. It's just all about sort of following, I think it was Andy to start off with, and I just felt like sort of a quarter way through I had the pace, and I thought if I just go for it now and hope for the best, and it worked out. And I saw Max was down in sort of 9th or 10th, and I thought this is the best chance I've got now to gain as many points as I can.
Yeah, and it is crucial, isn't it, as a championship contender, which you clearly are, you're the points leader. It's crucial that you're able to capitalise on those opportunities when they come up. So I don't know how much you knew about, whether Max was struggling for pace this week, but you must have realised when he wasn't up there on the front row of the grid, okay, this is the time I have to do well in this race now.
Absolutely, yeah. It was one of them where, I knew he was struggling a little bit with the tyres and his race pace. So that's why I thought I better capitalise where I can, because, I might gain weight for Croft and Donington, so that might sort of swing it back the other way. So I need to gain as many points as I can when I can.
That's a good point, actually. With that in mind, then, race 2 also needs to be a good one if possible. You've been a bit of a master of these reverse grid races. As I said, you've had a 4th, a 3rd, and a 5th in the 3 so far. Chances of another podium here tonight?
Don't jinx me. I don't think we'll be getting a podium with how close the grid is, but hopefully, if I can get back in the top 10 or be anywhere near around about Max, then that's a bonus.
Excellent stuff. Well, either way, congratulations on the race victory, mate, and hopefully we'll be chatting to you again after race 2.
Thank you very much.
Scott Bugner then gets himself his first victory of the season. Dave Marshall has got our runner-up finisher.
Yeah, we do indeed. Joe Lask, a P2, not bad at all, I would say that. A really difficult race, I would say, at the start there. A lot of attacks coming from different sides. But I tell you what, to just about quarter of that race was really where you came on point, just managing to get them lap times and really put significant time between you and the rest of the pack. I take it from that point onwards, the job was about done for you.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, right at the start, it was great to have a little battle. But I knew as soon as you start battling, you can start losing time. So just tried to push along behind Scott the best I could and try and gap everyone. But we all got bunched up, and then it was just a task of trying to get past and make sure we gap the cars ahead.
Yeah, and I'll ask the same as Andy. Obviously, race 2, we never quite know what's going to happen with these full reverse grid races. I take it's just going to be picking your battles and trying to bring home the most points you possibly can. Is it going to be a particularly difficult track for doing that, with overtaking being as easy as it is round here?
I think so. As soon as you manage to get past someone, it becomes quite difficult to hold that position without 3 other cars coming right up behind you and trying to take you as well. So it's very easy to lose time, but it's very easy to gain time. So just got to be consistent around this, put in the lap times, and hopefully we can push right up to the front.
Well, fantastic result there, Joel. Brilliant result on getting a P2, and looking forward to seeing what you can do in this second race.
Appreciate it. Cheers.
Spot on, and we'll hand it back over to Andy for our P3 man, Eric Axelsen.
Yeah, Eric Axelsen gets himself onto the podium in the first race of the night here at Silverstone. Eric, that was a really good drive from you, actually, and it looked like you were being patient for a bit there at the start, but then in the second half of the race, you were pretty ruthless.
Yeah, that was a really close and hard and tough race, but I've never been happier with P3. It's really close.
Yeah, it's so close out there. Is this the kind of racing that you enjoy, this slipstreamy side-by-side racing?
Of course it is, yes. Really tough, clean race. That's the best.
Well, it was certainly entertaining to watch. Glad to hear that you enjoyed being part of it as well. Eric, we'll let you go because we're less than a minute away from the start of race 2, but congratulations on what I think is your first podium of the season. Well done.
Thank you, Andy.
Eric Axelsen then, third position.